Hey guys, just wanted to do my review of DC's Legends of Tomorrow, Season 4, Episode 8, the mid-season finale called Legends of To-Meow-Meow. And, sadly, because I tried to upload a reaction video, it got blocked, so I'm just going to be doing, and I don't know, given just trying to edit it, it's going to be more trouble than it's worth, then I think I'm just going to stick with the review and just not have to worry about, like, getting blocked for any kind of reason. Um, But yeah, so it continues right where the last episode left off, with Constantine essentially breaking time by breaking up with Desmond and preventing him from being sent to hell. Zara inexplicably turned into a cat, and Charlie has to sneak back into the bureau to figure out what's going on, and they sit and find out that basically Sarah. I guess they also finds out that Sarah is dead. Or first, she tries to escape to Vegas in 1962 to meet up with the leprechaun who was imprisoned with her, and then they're also followed by Mick, Ray, and um, Nate, and they're kind of just like dressed up as supposed to be. I guess it's supposed to be their take on the A Team. It's because now they've become known in the new timeline as like the custodians of chronology, and they even have their start with their own like opening credits sequence. And it turns out that they've taken on a shoot on sight policy with dealing with magical creatures now after Sarah was killed during the mission because Constantine never showed up to help them with the unicorn in the season premiere. That she ended up being killed by that same unicorn, and then I guess and also what happened when they were dealing with the fairy godmother that Zara was turned into a cat as a result of that. Um, Try to sneak back into the bureau to figure out some of this stuff and find out that Constantine was imprisoned in the alternate timeline at the Time Bureau for, I guess, like time crimes. And then you have this moment where it's like, yeah, they turn Zari back into a human being, and she's like pissed at them for screwing up time because she had it coughing off a hairball. And it's like, do you know where this tongue has been? Faces. And because they don't want to listen to her and saying that like, oh, we can just go back and save Sarah, and then the timeline will be fixed. And Zari's like, no, you have to go back and stop yourself from saving Desmond's life. Of course, they're too pig-headed and selfish to listen. So basically, the entire premise is them trying to fix the timeline without having to go and fix the point of where time actually broke. So they take the jump ship back, and so I gotta mention this. It was going pretty funny how they broke the fourth wall during the custodians of chronology's bit. They were on the time ship, and Gideon says like, "Hey, you missed a call from Barry, Oliver, and Kara." And Ray goes, "Sounds like the annual crossover." And it's like, "That's going to be a hard pass." Um, then, but then of course, when they go back in time and try to save Sarah's life, all that ends up happening is that Mick, Ray, and Nate all end up dying on their mission to deal with the fairy godmother. So it's like, okay, let's go back to that timeline and have Charlie disguise herself as a fairy godmother and trick that girl into breaking her ties with the fairy godmother early, um, in order to free, in order to save the boys' lives. But then like ends up creating a new timeline where now the let what I know, like I think before that there was a timeline where after they saved Sarah's life, the three boys died, and then now the team was just made up of Sarah, Ava, and Gideon, who inexplicably have taken on human form, and they were basically like called the Sirens of Space Time, and they had this whole montage where they like walked up the camera, flipped their hair back, and like struck a pose like Charlie's Angels, had their own opening credit sequence, and um, it even had this whole moment where they go into like Hank Hayward's office and says, "Good morning, Hank," and it's like, "Good morning, Sirens," and and then you had Zari disguising herself, trying to pass herself as Amaya to figure out what's going on, and they say it's like that's how they found out they had to go back in time to save the guys from being killed by the fairy godmother. But then by doing that, it just it created a timeline. This is one of the craziest things ever. It created a timeline where the fairy godmother bonded itself to Mick. He split off from the team to go join up with the fairy godmother as who became like the new Captain Cold. And because of some comment about saying that like all the legends are all puppets, they're all turned into like they everyone gets turned into puppets, and they have this even their own opening credit sequence about the called the DC's Puppets of Tomorrow. So that was pretty. So that was pretty wild, and so it basically goes through a series of events where they keep trying to go back and you know change the timeline, and even create a timeline where now Nate and his dad are dead, and then when they finally create a timeline where everybody's alive, but because John's at the center of all the time breaking and the ripple effects that his decision had, he has like all the memories of his time of the different timelines in his head, and it's like causes him to like pass out, his nose to bleed, and he might and they Zara suggests it might actually be killing him. The effects that changes may actually be killing him, and Charlie is the one who's and Charlie tries to says he can like you'll be fine, but then Constantine starts to listen to Zara and says like no, I got to go back and fix what I did. And Maya doesn't want to give up her powers, so which makes her more determined when Zari just knocks her to the ground. So she disguises herself as Ava to trick the remaining legends into going after to like New Orleans 2018, back to when Constantine was trying to prevent Desmond's death, and say it's like, oh, there's a magical creature on the loose during that time. And it turns out they still have like a kill on sight policy with magical creatures, and they've said they've been trying to look for the shapeshifter who they don't know is Charlie, and so of course they almost end up trying to have to kill Constantine, thinking he's the shapeshifter until until Charlie reveals himself to be the shapeshifter and tries to ask Sarah like why are they still killing magical creatures, and realizes that she was the one who was, I guess, like their guide or moral compass into saying that not all the magical creatures are bad, and they tend to start killing them all, and realizes and then it starts to sink in that she was the missing equation in fixing all this, and that she really needs to swallow her pride about losing her gifts, and realize that she needs to be a vital part of the team if she doesn't want like all magical creatures, including herself, to be just wiped out by the legends. And and after like the past, Constantine breaks up with Desmond, or it's gonna confuse one of the past one, like the second past, Constantine breaks up with Desmond. Constantine from this episode walks up to him and tells him that everything he meant was real, that he was wrong. He tries to explain the situation with about the time travel kind of to him, but then he just decides to use the memory gun to just wipe his memory of one of Constantine's past selves ever breaking up with him. And the first Constantine who left the apartment before the second Constantine showed up ends up meeting with Desmond on the street. They share a kiss, and that kiss is what causes that ripple effect to kind of reverse the timeline back to its original state, and back to where the first episode ended before the changes in the timeline, where Sarah and the other legends were fighting Mike the Spike and the Professor Stein doll, and it just ends with them being able to just subdue it, and presumably bring it back to the Time Bureau to lock it, to basically just lock it up. And, Constantine just, tells them what happened, or tells Sarah what happened, and comes clean about the demon that's after him, Neuron. And, Charlie decides to apologize and realizes, like, I took Amaya's form because, this is the thing. This is the form it took when she joined the Legends, and Zari's, forgiving her and saying, messing up the timeline for personal gain is like, we're just as guilty of doing that. Like, it's also like a rite of passage at this point. So there's apparently gonna be less animosity, and the episode ends with, Hank Haywood playing golf with somebody who's supposed to be his superior, and who's basically the one who told them there was a setback in Project Hades and that it will get back on track. And then, not surprisingly, it turns out it is Neron who's taken on the form of Desmond, and it's apparently she's able to, and you can see how he still has like shape shifting abilities because his face turns like boiling, like bubbly and stuff like that. But yeah, it established that's the big bad. Like, he's manipulating Hank into like creating the Project Hades and like weaponizing the magical creatures for his own benefit, which is something I've been wanting to see from the get go. And I'm glad they're finally addressing that. Yeah, they built towards something. There's a bigger picture, and that Neron's going to be the puppet master in metaphorically speaking. For this whole season, just like so it's like he's exploiting the whole magical creature situation, the same way that the Cult of Malice were exploiting like time anachronisms. So yeah, I was kind of waiting for like a big bad to kind of exploit this whole situation, which I've been wanting to see, and not only because of how crazy bonkers. I not only like this episode, not just because of how crazy bonkers this episode was and like self-aware in true Legends fashion, but I felt like it also addressed the criticisms that I've kind of had, and I've been kind of shared with some other people, where it's like, they had both Constantine and Charlie both on the ship that both experienced with dealing with magical creatures, but it was like underutilized, and considering you have then you have Charlie, then you have Mona, each helping everybody deal with the magical creatures in like non-lethal ways. And Constantine was kind of like falling by the wayside, but now I feel like it kind of justified the presence of both Constantine and Charlie on the ship. And you feel like he felt like a major player in this episode, and I kind of hope he doesn't kind of get lost in the shuffle, considering they have like a lot of characters they're balancing in the show, even by its own standards. And I finally feel like the show, with this 2-part mid-season finale, that the show is starting to pick up, and I'm looking forward to where it's going. It sucks that we have to wait till April of 2019 before it re-airs, just because CW wants to air a Roswell reboot that I don't know anybody who actually cares about it, especially since they've only just started promoting it and releasing promos for it this week. And so, I don't know. I guess considering how people feel skittish about, just tired of like reboots and how skittish they are about it, I don't know if that's even gonna last. And if it doesn't, it'll be even all the more infuriating that the show's return was pushed back just for a show that might not even like go past the first season. But it's stupid. I don't get how CW manages their shows anymore, but it is what it is. I might just, like I said, I'll still continue doing reactions to the other shows comic book shows that I watch. Considering this should all be back in January, or like release for Walking Dead like by February. So I'll keep up with that. It's just Legends is you won't be, if you're that's again you gotta wait till April till new episodes, unfortunately. But it was a great way to wrap up the first half of the season and set up the second half. It looks like the show's really going to get back on track, even though it started off kind of slow and a bit, and just trying to find its footing in the beginning. But anyway, guys, what do you think of the episode? Leave your thoughts in the comments down below. If you like this video, like, share, and subscribe, and I will talk to you guys soon. Take care.